Welcome into Yahoo Sports Daily. If you are like us, you've been obsessively checking your Twitter account, your phone, your ESPN app, your Yahoo Sports app, just waiting for some news on the newest edition of LeBron's decision, but nothing quite yet. Pat Beverly came on the show yesterday, which you can find the entire interview on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page. He told us that the decision was going down last night. Well, technically, he told us the decision was going down on Monday, but didn't specify which Monday it was. But alas, here we are, and LeBron has yet to make his decision. Shams yesterday on ESPN said that he spoke with Rich Paul, and Rich Paul said the following. No decision made by LeBron yet. No timetable on a decision. Focus is still on the Heat, Cavs, and Sixers. So that's what we know now. Coley Harvey, Caroline Fenton hanging out with you this morning as Coley sits in for Jason Fitz. So, Coley, let's assume that Rich Paul is telling the truth, which anytime we hear an agent say anything, any agent for any sport, we always have to take it at least with a little bit of a grain of salt. But let's assume that everything that he just laid out there is the truth. Is this information being shared to nudge those teams and basically send a message to those teams and say, hey, we're so close. You just need to make a few roster tweaks here and there in order for LeBron to really make his decision public?
We can't be surprised if that is what's really at play here, Caroline. What I really think, though, is that Rich Paul is mostly telling the truth. I think he's telling the truth that it is down to specifically these three teams, and he's also telling the truth that there is no timeline. I mean, there really isn't. At this point, LeBron could hijack this all the way to training camp if he really wanted to. Of course, we're not going to go all the way to October with this. That would be just super silly if we were to last that long with this. LeBron has said in the past that, hey, this could go for a good chunk of the summer. We're now here in the middle of July, and he's still teamless. Who knows exactly what that means other than LeBron James? I think that he knows way more than Rich Paul, which is to suggest that LeBron isn't maybe necessarily saying everything that's on his mind to everybody. Probably the only person in the world, the only person on the planet that knows as much about this situation as LeBron James is his wife, Savannah James. And neither one of them are going to talk until they're ready. So what I think this really is about LeBron James taking his own sweet time and determining when exactly he wants to make this announcement. There's so many other factors at play, like, Uninterrupted, which is the production wing that LeBron James has. They're launching a new show on Thursday. It may have absolutely nothing to do with LeBron James. It may have everything to do, at least on this Thursday, to do with LeBron James. So I just think that he is waiting for whatever advantageous moment that he feels there is for him in terms of capitalizing the sports landscape, so to speak, the topics du jour in the sports world. He wants to capitalize on that, and that's why he's taking his own sweet time. So I do agree, or I do at least believe Rich Paul when he says there is no timeline here. We're just going to have to all wait and see. I also do believe that it most likely, again, there could be another team out there. I think we're going to talk about that team in a moment that could be lurking in the weeds. But the Heat makes sense. The Cavs make sense. The Sixers make sense. I think what really makes sense, though, primarily about Cleveland and Miami is just the sense to go back to something that you're so used to, so familiar with. You mentioned Pat Beverly being on with us yesterday. Mm-hmm. He was talking about having a chance to go back home to Chicago and play for the Bulls at one point in time in his career, and what it meant to him to be able to go to the church that he grew up in, to see his family, to have a home-cooked meal instead of having to cook his meals or eat out while he's in this new city that he didn't know. That there's something to be said about that as well for LeBron in this entire saga. But either way, the only person who really knows what's going on right now is LBJ himself.
I mean, I don't disagree that the timeline could be influenced by something else. It's motivated by business. It's motivated by the sports calendar. It's motivated by what the biggest stories are going on right now, because we talked a lot about how LeBron probably wasn't going to make his decision, or at least announce his decision, during the World Cup, because he didn't necessarily want to split the time that was dedicated on sports shows and, this digital space on sports websites with anything else. And I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. I don't think that that's necessarily LeBron James, putting his ego above all else. I think that's a business decision. In fact, Rich Paul has said several times over in his recent appearances and interviews on podcasts and shows, whatever it may be, he has talked ad nauseum about how this is a business decision for LeBron James. And I kind of interpreted that as two different ways. The decision itself, where LeBron is going to play next season, is a business decision, but also when they are going to announce it is a business decision. Because LeBron James is one of the biggest brands in the sports world. Not just here, not just in the NBA, but globally. So anything LeBron says, anything LeBron does, down to the stories he posts on Instagram and the happy birthday tweets he might send out to his teammates, all of those are part of his brand. So the final iteration of his decision, and how many times have we gotten the decision, going to Miami, going back to Cleveland, signing a second contract in Cleveland, going to the Lakers, deciding that he's not going back to the Lakers. This is his last time to capitalize on a decision, which has brought him so much conversation and so many eyeballs in the past. So I don't necessarily blame LeBron for trying to be very calculated in when the announcement comes, not just the decision itself. But another question I have is, Coley, what more do you need to know? Like, what massive roster moves are out there to be made for Miami or Philadelphia or Cleveland? Everyone has made up their minds. Jaylen Brown is in Philadelphia. We already know, at least for the most part, what these teams are going to look like once the season starts. You already know who feels like a contender and who doesn't. You already know who you're going to be playing for, what your coaching staff is going to look like. You already know the weather in Philadelphia and Miami and Cleveland. You already have so many of the answers of what your life in those respective teams are going to look like. So what more does LeBron James need to know?
I think that's the reason why, for me, I think that he has made up his mind in his own mind, just hasn't shared with anyone outside of his most intimate circle. Because, at this point, everything else in the NBA landscape is set. Perhaps there has been some last second backroom dealing with him and Rich Paul in terms of one of these teams, whichever team this is, trying to get some of these other pieces in place that he would like. Of course, there's the chatter that maybe he's trying to figure out a way to influence the Wizards to finally say that they actually are going to part with Anthony Davis so that he could rejoin and team back up with AD. Or maybe there's a way that he's trying to convince whatever team there is to get his son to play with him again. I'm of the mindset that he actually is at this stage of his career where he says, look, Bronny James is his own man. I want him to carve out his path on his own. But maybe that's what also is at play here. Who knows? I don't really think that we are waiting for the other dominoes to fall around the league, or pieces even that LeBron James can control that way, those dominoes to fall around the league. I think all of that, to your point, has been set. There's just something a little broader here at foot. And that's why it feels as if this is more of a business ploy, more of a ploy to, hey, let's announce with our new show that's launching on Uninterrupted. Let's announce in a way that the entire world is going to have all eyeballs on us. Let's announce after the World Cup in this calendar space where football hasn't quite started yet and everybody has to pause to pay attention to our news. That's why it feels like this is the week, because as you pointed out to us as we were just getting ready to come on the show, rookie minicamps are already beginning to start for some NFL teams. We're already now getting into the football calendar. This feels like the moment for LeBron James to go on and make this happen and get us all out of the misery of the waiting game that we've done so often throughout his career.
We're just so starved for something. We're just begging. We're like all over begging for more soup from LeBron James. But you mentioned it. Rookie mini camps are starting in the NFL. It is July 21st. But if LeBron was telling us anything a couple of months ago, it may be an indicator that we have even longer to wait. I want to play this soundbite for you. This is back in May about how
Mhm.
long LeBron's decision might take. Take a listen.
Yeah, I'm still in the moment of like just taking my time and saying I haven't even really thought about it too much. Obviously, I understand that I'm a free agent and I can control my own destiny. If being here with this franchise, for the foreseeable future, or if it's going somewhere else. But like I haven't even really even got to that point. I haven't even taken my family vacation yet, which is going to happen after Memorial Day. That's kind of the thing at the forefront of my mind, but. I think at some point, up until, up in June, late June, as July roll around, free agency starts to, gets going and, as, July rolling, maybe into August, we start to kind of like get a feel of, what my future may look like.
August? August?
I mean, he did say July too. He
August.
did say
He
late
did say
July
July.
as well. So, but August is a long time away, Caroline.
That's a long time. But I also think that's an indicator of, and maybe I'm thinking too much into it. I can be the first one to admit that, but also I'll pick anything that LeBron says up as a little breadcrumb or a little clue into his mind and what he's thinking. This was back in May. We know that LeBron James is a really smart business person surrounded by a lot of really other smart business people. So going back in May, LeBron probably knew what his future held. He probably knew he was not going to go back to the Lakers. He probably knew that there was another decision to be made for him. So maybe he was laying the groundwork for, hey, I am going to wait this out as long as possible. I'm going to wait until after the World Cup. I'm going to tease things at Fanatics Fest. They're looking at their calendars and coming up with the best possible time to make that decision.
Yeah,
Just sit
that's
there.
what that's what it feels like to me as well. That I mean, again in May there was still a lot to take shape around the league itself. Whether he knew or not at that moment in time that he was coming back to the Lakers or not, at least for the rest of us at that moment, it looked like a foregone conclusion that he most likely was going to go back to LA. But that had not occurred by that time. The Lakers hadn't started making their plans that clearly were for a post LeBron life. They hadn't quite started making those plans evident, even to him, I'm sure, at that point in time. So now he is saying, look, there's a lot that's got to happen. Jaylen Brown's got to sign with whoever he's going to sign with. We got to figure that situation out. Giannis, we got to figure that situation out. All these other dominoes have to happen. And maybe that's why he said it's not going to be June. It's not going to be the rest of May. I got to take vacation, spend time with my family, get away. He was also probably talking about that trip that he took with the 2016 Cavs, where they went all over Europe and vacation island hopping as well. He had to do all of that, get all of that out of his system, and then sit down and focus on, okay, what is at stake in terms of this business decision that we're about to make? What is the timing that could occur there? And I think that's why he was smart enough to say it's going to be later in the end of the summer, whether it's late July or into August. But August is a long time for May.
That's
August
a
is
long
just a
time.
long time throughout the summer. But hey, here we are we're knocking on that door, but we're still in July. So I think this week we're still going to hear something.
I think we'll continue to get some nuggets here and there. Again, we heard from Rich Paul that there are 3 teams that they're keeping their eyes on: the Philadelphia 76ers, Miami, and Cleveland. I don't think any of that is a surprise. Shockingly, no mention of the Golden State Warriors. We will get into that and what we think that very well could mean. But for right now, honestly, good for LeBron. Enjoy the family vacation, enjoy the spotlight being on you, and enjoy getting to weigh all of your options in what is more than likely to be the final decision of one of the greatest, if not the greatest, careers that we've ever seen in the history of the NBA. Well, we mentioned it, training camps are getting geared up in the NFL. That means that college football is also on the horizon. We'll hit some on target or on something from a conference that just means more.
My sister told me, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. I did. And now it's about, well, what goals are, what's left on the table? I want Street Fighter to be a massive success. I want to do more Guile, but also I want to do more film. I want to do more TV. There's seats on, on the Georgia political scene that are open. Is that a road? Or is this the road to stay with something I love so much, like wrestling? And I love this. I don't know how I'd say bye to it.
Sharks down 10. 3rd down and 10 from the 19. Edwards steps up. Now he's in trouble. And Edwards sacked. Back at the 17. And once again, it's Devontae O'Malley. And flipped into the end zone. Touchdown. A thing of beauty. DeLaurent from Murray with a late pitch over the top, end over end, and a Pirates touchdown.
If you are a check writer at one of these places that has achieved success historically in college football, and you are ideologically opposed to your check going directly to Rev, to paying the players, with the ideology of, well, we didn't have to do this back when. When you hear we didn't used to have to do this amongst boosters, go ahead and order the gravestone for your football program.
Still Barnes in there. No Jared Ware on this drive yet. Roberts against the blitz, goes to the end zone for Keon Williams. Easy as you like. 16-yard touchdown.
There's Keon Williams. Tried to go to him in the last drive on that 4th down play to the end zone. Good defense by Orlando, but that time able to shake free to the corner.
The SEC commish, Greg Sankey, said, quote, "No one has created the weekly competition that exists in the Southeastern Conference. We believe we're the best conference in college football." You heard it there from the commish, so let's play a little game that we like to play here on Yahoo Sports Daily called On Target or On Something. We'll take a look at some of the college football takes that we've seen coming out of SEC Media Days, and we'll ask, are they on target? Is that 1,000% correct, or are you a little bit loony? So let's start there with what Greg Sankey had to say. He says the SEC is the best conference in college football. On target or on something, Coley Harvey?
Well, just for him saying that, that's what I'm going with here. That's on target. He's absolutely right that he has to say that. If the commissioner of the SEC said anything other than that, I think we'd all be questioning him. In fact, he'd probably get run out of Tampa, Florida, run off the beaches of Southwest Florida by SEC fans who somehow found their way down there who aren't Gators fans. But no, seriously, he's got to say that. He has to proclaim that his conference is the best. And it is certainly optics-wise, it seems that way because this is arguably, and I would actually contend not even arguably, but for the sake of it, the most passionate, most diehard, most loyal fan bases in all of college football, and arguably all of sports, are the fan bases that exist in that part of the country. But that being said, his teams have not been the champions in the last 3 years. As good as those programs have been traditionally, as massive as their fan bases have been, as passionate and loyal as their fan bases have been, their teams have not won the national championship game the last 3 years. And I believe that behind closed doors, he's saying to his athletic directors and his football coaches that, yeah, we are the best. We may believe we're the best, but we've got to buckle up. This is an important year for the SEC because they can't go 0 for 4 all of a sudden in the college football playoffs of the Big Ten, especially with everything else that's at stake on the periphery of the sport of college football, having to do with NIL and rights and the changing nature of how big conferences can get and Congress getting involved in all of this. Because of all of that, this is an important moment in time for the SEC to assert the dominance that it once had over the rest of the sport. So that's why I say behind closed doors, he's telling the truth to his football coaches and ADs. You got to get it together this year, or else, he's going to start standing up there and saying the same thing year after year. And it's just going to start feeling as if it's a false narrative that's just been perpetuated by how good the conference was.
I think he's both on target and on something, and I'll explain why. When Greg Sankey says no one has created the weekly competition that exists in the SEC, that's on target. I agree with that. The SEC is the deepest conference in college football. The SEC has more teams that can actually legitimately contend for and win a national championship than any other conference in college football. Just in the last 2 years, we've had 7 different SEC teams make the CFP. That's just in the 12-team playoff. And that also includes some kind of middle of the road, maybe 1B tier SEC teams. Tennessee has gone through decades of miserable football. They were in the CFP 2 years ago. Texas A&M has never gotten to an SEC championship game. They were in the CFP last year. And of course, you have kind of the powers that, and Ole Miss too. Ole Miss, before Lane Kiffin got there, had never had a double-digit winning season, and they were in the CFP semifinal last year. And then you also add in the powers that be in the SEC, the Texases, the Oklahomas, the Georgias, and the Alabamas that have been in the CFP over the last couple of years. That you had Mississippi State, who was one of the worst teams in the conference last year, take Texas and Tennessee, 2 of the teams that were viewed to be at the top of the conference, take them to overtime. So yeah, I agree with that this is the deepest, probably most entertaining conference in college football because there is so much parity. But I think that having the most parity and being the deepest is a different thing than being the best. Because the SEC hung its head on being the best conference in college football for so many years for one reason. Because the SEC was winning national championships. And that's the only thing that matters in this sport. Like the reason why the SEC says it's the best baseball conference on earth is because they've won each of the last 8 baseball national championships. National championships are the only thing that we can really say it divides the best from the worst or the haves from the have-nots. And fact of the matter is, the SEC is a have-not over the last 3 years. So to say that they're the best, I don't think I can say that necessarily, because if you're not winning championships, then you're not at the top of the college football world. But let's keep it rolling here. Missouri coach Eli Drinkwitz, he's always got something to say. He's always good for a soundbite, and that's why we love Drink. But he even took it a step further than what Greg Sankey had to say. He said, the reason the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships is because they have weak non-conference schedules. Is Drink on target or on something?
I think he's on something, and I at first I actually misread this. I read this as he said that they have weak conference schedules, conference slates, but it's not even the non-conference too, because I mean both the SEC and the Big Ten are playing some of the same teams non-conference wise, or at least teams that are on similar tiers non-conference wise. So I don't get why he's making this distinction all of a sudden. And I really do want to point out a point that you made about parity in the SEC. Yeah, the parity up and down in terms of just how good those teams are, it is unrivaled to a certain degree, to a certain respect. With respect to what Drinkwitz is saying right here, the Big Ten also is a deep conference. I mean, this is a conference that Illinois all of a sudden has burst onto the scene and seems like it's going to be there for a little while longer. This is a conference where you've seen Penn State, of course, not have a very good season last year, but Penn State has gotten back around the corner, at least in recent years, and you would think that maybe they're not that far away from still being a legitimate contender as well. Of course, Ohio State, Michigan was not who it was the last year or so, and of course, given the fallout from the scandal with Sharon Moore, everything going on there, they had to hire a new head coach, but a head coach who has been a winner everywhere else he's been in Kyle Whittingham. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Michigan continues to stay in that dominant part of the conversation. Ohio State, we mentioned. Iowa's had its moments. Washington was in the college football playoff just a couple of years ago. USC and Oregon are now in the mix as well, and they are 2 formidable teams that are playing non-conference opponents that are still, high in the mix for what the Big Ten is. It just feels like when people talk about the Big Ten, especially from the Southeast perspective, and I can say this because I've both lived and worked in college football and also grew up in the Southeast, but I've lived and worked in both spaces, in the Midwest, in the Northeast, and also in the Southeast. And I can say this, it feels like when people in the SEC country talk about the Big Ten, They think that it's all Maryland and Rutgers and teams that aren't actually able to contend for anything. And that just kind of feels like that's where Drinkwitz's comment is coming from. It feels as if it's coming from this place of superiority where Missouri's had a great run underneath him here as he continues his career with the Tigers. But Missouri isn't on par with the same teams that have been going into the college football playoff and winning the national championship for the SEC. You have teams like that who are doing that very thing in the Big Ten in terms of winning their conference, getting into the college football playoff, and then, of course, winning it. Indiana was a program I didn't even mention, but obviously we know who Indiana has now become, given that college football. The helmet that's right here on my shoulder, this team in purple, that they're going to have ups and down years. They're not always going to succeed. They're not always going to be all that great. But my Northwestern Wildcats, you never know what you're going to get out of them either. It's just a conference where the parity is so extreme, and I think that it's just so easy to overlook that when you don't play in that conference, when you don't see that conference that regularly. And again, I'm just stating this case for the Big Ten because the Big Ten has won the last 3 national championships. But the SEC, I think the Drinkwitz just has to let 2 things be true at once. His conference plays the same kind of teams. They're not all cupcakes that they're walking through on a non-conference schedule. The Big Ten also isn't just walking through cupcakes on its non-conference schedule. They're both good squads, both good conferences. His conference just hasn't been the best one when it matters the most, to the point that you and I just were making, Caroline.
Yeah, Coley, I'm of the belief that if you live in a glass house, you probably should not throw stones. And look, I am an SEC girly through and through. I graduated from an SEC school. In my extended family, we have 8 different SEC alumni.
Wow.
I used to host on Sirius XM SEC radio. Like my whole life, I fell in love with sports because of SEC football. But I think that Drink also needs to take a look in the mirror and say, okay, well, last year, Missouri played Central Arkansas, Louisiana Lafayette, and Kansas, albeit a non-conference Power 4 that hasn't even made a bowl game since 2023. So it's not like Missouri is going out there and scheduling the Oregons and the SMUs and the Clemsons on their schedule. But last year, Ohio State played Texas. Last year, Michigan played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And if you want to discount the championships in the Big Ten, I think it's fair to say that Indiana has had the hardest path to a national championship than we have ever seen before, because they had to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game in order to get the first round bye. And then they went across the country to Pasadena to play Alabama. And then they beat Oregon, and then they beat Miami in a national championship game. Like that, I just don't think it's fair to discount the championships of the Big Ten when you yourself haven't scheduled these behemoths. Now, is it bad for the sport that the reigning national champion Indiana Hoosiers start their schedule with North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Northwestern, no offense, and Rutgers and Nebraska before they play Ohio State in mid-October? Yes, I do think that that's bad for the sport. I do think that we need to have better, more premier matchups between some of the best teams in college football. But that comes from the reform in the College Football Playoff Committee. Because if we're only going to reward wins and losses and an 11-1 team is going to get in no matter what, well, then what's the point of scheduling the Ohio States, the Texases, the Oregons, and the Alabamas of the world on your schedule? But plenty more to get into as we break down some of the latest from SEC Media Days. It is talking season, one of my personal favorite times of the year, only behind football season. But football season is among us, and I know New Orleans Saints fans are chomping at the bit to recreate the Tyler Shuck that we saw at the end of last season. Erin Summers joins the program talking all things New Orleans, coming up next.
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus round 3 rookie leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
Derby on the ground, a high popper. Puka comes up to get it at the 10. Williams out over the 15 and the 20. Puka Williams is free inside the 10, 5, touchdown, Puka Williams.
When you have one of the best returners in the league, when you have one of the fastest guys in the league, he has been on the verge of returning these over and over in this game. You know how dangerous he is. You've got to have a plan.
How do you feel about the Seahawks skill players at this point in time?
The good part, I think, if you're a Seahawks fan, what you would argue here is that outside of Cooper Kupp, like, everybody should, I think, have another step to take. It's not impossible that JSN does this again, but you bake in some, I'm not like negative against the player, but just a little regression there. The way you offset that is younger guys and other players step up.
Walter Wilbon's on his left hip. White rolls right. White throws deep. White's got a man open. Jamon Street, touchdown, New Mexico. First career touchdown pass for LeJames White, and New Mexico strikes on first down.
Look at him go. Calls for it, fakes the handoff. I mean, textbook QB1 stuff.
Pretty good throw.
Really good.
Safe to say, Tyler Shuck picked the right workout partner. We see there Saints quarterback Tyler Shuck working out with Saints legend Drew Brees. We are now joined by Erin Summers of the Believe in Saints podcast to talk all things Houdat. So we saw some good, we saw some bad from Tyler Shuck last season. What do you think are fair and reasonable expectations for Tyler Shuck coming into his second year in the league?
The concern always is with a rookie quarterback, what they're going to be like in year 2, because the book is out. They've seen what you can do. The other teams understand that Tyler can run. He can throw. He is very smart in the pocket. But what is going to be different this year is the personnel that he has working around him. A head coach, Kellen Moore, attacked the offense during the free agency period and the draft. They added a lot of weapons for Tyler to work with. And towards the end of the season, the roster was very depleted. He put together 5 wins, 4 in the last 5 games of the season, with half of the starters on the field, if that. And I think that that shows what he is capable of. So when he has a full roster to work with and year 2 under the system with head coach Kellen Moore, I think that he's going to take a step forward, and this team is going to be a lot more consistent and productive from the beginning of the season.
Erin, you mentioned that the Saints drafted a lot of offensive firepower to go around Shuck. Of course, one of those players being the first-round pick, the tight end Jordan Tyson. How do you think that he's going to be able to help Shuck in the Saints offense right away?
Yeah, so Jordan Tyson is somebody that can come in and be an immediate impact player for this team. However, he has to be on the field, and that has been the issue with him. And unfortunately, the Saints' other wide receiver, their number 1 receiver in Chris Olave, also has had injury history. Jordan Tyson and Chris Olave, neither of them have fully participated in the offseason training. We're going to see how that translates to what they're able to do in training camp, but they're in a bit of a ramp up period because they're watching those injuries. For Jordan Tyson, he's dealt with an ankle, a knee, broken collarbone, hip. There've been a bunch of issues. He missed 4 games last season. So the best ability is availability in this game, and you need him on the field. And that's what the Saints are trying to protect him from, the ability to be able to play every game for them this upcoming year. But he is fast. He is smart. He can do everything. Him and Chris Olave can be interchangeable receivers. They can run all of the routes on the route tree. They can stretch the field. So I think it's going to be really huge for Tyler Shuck to have 2 very similar receivers to work with that can be those interchangeable pieces for him.
There's no overstating the importance that Alvin Kamara is to this team, to this city. So the New Orleans Saints restructured his deal to keep him in town. They also bring in Travis Etienne in free agency. So how do you expect the coaching staff to divide up the workload between these 2 backs?
Travis Etienne is the number 1 back in New Orleans right now. He came in off of one of his best seasons, 13 touchdowns, 7 on the ground, 6 receiving. He's showing that he can be a dual purpose back. He's had 3 seasons over 1,000 rushing yards. And unfortunately, Alvin Kamara is going into his 10th year and hasn't had that type of production in quite some time. He had his lowest yards per carry, lowest yards per game in his 9-year career last year. So the production just hasn't been there. And that's why it was hard for these two, the Saints and Alvin, to come together on terms. They ended up renegotiating his contract. So he's going to come in for a little bit less money. But Achane is going to be your number 1 back. They're going to use Alvin Kamara. You can't not use him, and hopefully he bounces back from what was a very down year last year for him. And honestly, of late, he's kind of put together a couple seasons now where he's not been the most productive, which is why the Saints put an emphasis on bringing in another back in Travis Achane, and also bolstering the offensive line, because that was a huge issue last year because of injuries. The interior blocking was terrible. They were 29th in pass block win rate. So they had a lot of issues, and they really went out during the offseason to attack the run game and bolster things in that area of the game.
Back to the Saints passing game, we mentioned Chris Olave earlier. Early in his career, he had the concussion bug. It seemed like he couldn't get out of the way of those. In fact, he even thought about retiring at one point in 2024. And then last season, he comes back, has a healthy career year. What is the reasonable expectation that the Saints have for him in terms of his health and in terms of making sure that they are continuing to get the kind of production they got last year and that he also showed early in his career?
Olave had a fully healthy season last year. He had a couple issues late in the season, but the Saints were not in contention. He could have potentially played through if he wanted to, but they opted not to have him go because of where they were in the standings, and there's no postseason play ahead of them. He is somebody that is going to fight through and improve his game every single year. The knock on him early in his career was he doesn't play through contact. Well, he has definitely done that now. He has shown that he has added elements to his game. I mentioned the speed earlier. He wants to be known as somebody who can get down the field for some of those big plays. I think that he is no doubt your number 1 wide receiver in this room. He has stepped up even more as a leader, which is, if you know him at all, he is quiet. He doesn't say a lot, but I have seen him giving advice to some of the rookies, and they're coming up to him, asking him questions about what they should have done on different plays during practice. And he is starting to take on more ownership of that room, being one of the older guys in the receiving room. It definitely starts with Chris Olave in New Orleans, health primarily, but he has shown that he is going to be tough. He is going to fight through a lot, which is what he did last year to stay on the field. And I think that they can count on him this year.
Chris Olave is extension eligible. We've seen some other receivers from that class get their extensions. Drake London extended in Atlanta. What's the latest that you've been hearing on some of their contract extension talks?
Chris Olave wants this done before training camp. I don't know if that's going to be what happens, because to Coley's point earlier, the consistency, they need to see him on the field to make sure that last year wasn't the anomaly, that he is actually that receiver that they can count on. And I don't know if this gets wrapped up as soon as he wants it to be. And then, of course, the production and what he has been able to do, the amount of time he has been on the field, does that warrant one of the top receiver contracts in the league, like we've seen some of these other younger players get in their extensions? It's going to be interesting to follow. He hasn't let it be a distraction. He showed up for every single OTA session and was there for all of minicamp. He has been here often throughout the offseason. He went with Tyler Shuck to San Diego. He is from the area, so I don't think he had to travel too far for that, but he was there working out with Shuck and Drew Brees. So he is undoubtedly all in. It's just a matter of when these two people, the Saints, maybe his agent, Chris, can come to terms here.
Like Caroline often says when I'm on the show, somehow Atlanta has to get in here. And me being from Atlanta, the NFC South is just such a wide open division. Of course, there is part of me that feels like, the Falcons might actually do it this year because it is so open. But the Saints will win the NFC South because of what? What is going to be the biggest reason why they're able to run away with the division this year?
it's going to be what they're able to do offensively. Defensively, they did not change a lot of pieces. Towards the end of the season, they were able to come on under Brandon Staley and his new defensive scheme, really start locking down the opposition. I mean, defensively, they were 19th in the run game. The year prior, they were 31st against the run. So the improvement that they had there is vast, and there haven't been a lot of changes on that side of the ball. So it's going to come down to the chemistry that's developed on the offensive side. A couple new pieces. Tyler Shuck in year 2. Head coach Kellen Moore said that he wants to expand the playbook a little bit more. You have some tough opponents to start at Detroit, at Baltimore. So can you set the tone early in the season and carry that momentum from last year into this year?
And the NFC South feels wide open. I mean, who's to say that it can't be the Saints division to win? I'm curious, you bring up head coach Kellen Moore. What is the temperature of the fan base on Kellen Moore, and how long do you think his leash is in New Orleans?
I think that people really like him. In New Orleans, it's all about, do you get out in the city? Do you love the people, the culture? Do you understand the fan base? And Kellen Moore is just a genuine guy. He is who he is. He is not going to be the outspoken yeller that we've seen a couple other fiery coaches here prior for the Saints. And it's a little bit different demeanor. But I think the fan base is like, all right, we can get behind him because of the production that we've seen, and because he is who he says he is. And even the players really like it. I mean, Alvin Kamara's like, I'll let you know when I find his personality. Like, I'll let you know when something funny happens, that if he makes a joke. And he is starting to let his guard down a little bit, show us a couple different sides. And he can be pretty funny. He's just subtle about it. I think him in his first year as a head coach, he learned a lot. It's very different when you go from being that offensive coordinator to sitting in that head coach role and still being the one calling the plays. He has said that he's done a lot of self-evaluation over the past year from the end of the season, and is going to change up some ways that he did lead this team. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But he and Tyler Shuck are really a great duo. They are both very genuine people, down to earth. Tyler Shuck has thrown himself into the community, and that definitely bodes well here in New Orleans.
Erin, I want to switch gears. We know you also cover the Pelicans, and it feels like every summer we have this tradition now of pictures of Zion Williamson emerging, where he's looking slim and trim and looking great and all. I mean, look at this. I mean, he's looking awesome. He's looking a lot better than James Harden was looking. We were looking at that photo yesterday. But still, the struggles to stay healthy, you know, that's still a primary concern, at least outside of New Orleans when it comes to Zion. How long do you expect the Pelicans to still lean into being led by Zion Williamson, that knowing that their future rests with him as the star of their franchise?
When you have a change in the front office and you bring in Joe Dumars to be the head of your basketball operations, and he wasn't the one that drafted Zion Williamson, that is definitely a question. Are the players that are on this team his guys as well? And he has stood behind Zion Williamson and what he thinks he can be. Dumars likes to play physical. He likes to be that bruiser inside. He likes defense. And that's the head coach that they went out and got in Jamal Mosley from Orlando. It is going to be a defense first. There's going to be high expectations. Mosley has been out on the turf in New Orleans with Zion working out, which is just, I mean, unheard of in this heat. I don't understand it, but props to both of them for doing it. And it's obviously boding well for Zion and the way that he is showing up in these pictures. My one concern, yes, is the injuries, but has he developed a jump shot? Like, can we do something else besides just going inside? And I think that is when things will really open up for this team, when we can get a little bit different type of game from Zion.
I think we're all just kind of like, okay, great. If you can get something from Zion, then great. But almost at a certain point, you have to stop waiting for it and stop hoping for it. It's been a long time of us waiting for Zion Williamson to kind of hit his peak and hit his stride in the NBA. Trey Murphy trade rumors are heating up. Do you see the Pelicans keeping him as a core piece, or could he be moved in a potential trade coming up?
I think one thing that we've seen from Joe Dumars and company is they set a price for somebody and they stick with it. They didn't waver when it came down to the trade deadline earlier this year. And they had multiple players that were asked about. Eve Meese was one of them. Herb Jones has been asked about. And whatever the conversations have been like, it's not been something that makes sense for Dumars to give up. It's very clear that this team is building around the 2 draft picks from last season in Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears, but you have to have pieces around them that make sense. And Trey Murphy is a great shooter, and he can make any team that he goes to better. You do have to continue to think about the future. The Pelicans do not have a lot of draft picks. That is definitely high on the list of expectations or things that they need out of whatever a trade would be with Trey Murphy. And I think that they're open to considering the conversations, and it will be interesting to see how this transpires. I think everybody across the league is waiting for the LeBron James shoe to drop and see how that ripple effect it goes against or across the league, and then go from there.
Erin, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight, bringing us into the world of New Orleans. I'm glad that I can talk about New Orleans in July under the air conditioning. It is much more pleasant than being in the New Orleans heat. Erin, thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
You can follow her on Twitter at Erin E. Summers. But coming up next, we'll continue the college football conversation, the latest on the Michigan Wolverines.
The starting price for a low 4-star. So low 4-star would be, we could be talking the 350th best player in the country. $350,000.
So 300 to 400 individuals a year, let's say roughly, are getting a 4-star ranking. $350K on average? That feels correct.
I saw that number and I thought, it seems low.
That
was my reaction.
Ross. 4th down and 4 for Jacksonville. Down a touchdown. 2 in motion for Edwards. 3-man, now 4-man rush. Launches end zone, far side, touchdown! Jaden Skoshak.
I mean, once again, rolling out, getting out of the pocket, avoiding the pressure, throwing on the run there, but great throw.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals are not going to be, one, running a serious operation this year again, and then 2, like, they got absolutely bludgeoned. They opened this year with 9 games against all, like, almost Super Bowl contenders, and they only play 3 home games over that span. They have a late bye. We're going to see probably Carson Beck for the fantasy playoffs because they just won't have enough wins. The Arizona Cardinals are a team from a managed league standpoint. I'm not drafting any of their players.
Really, if you watch their motions, the motions are at different speed. That's been pretty fun.
Calzada now with the quick pitch to the outside. That's not
Jinx.
fooling anybody as Hershot Davis picks him up and goes full body slam. Welcome to the WWE.
Spear, spear, spear. Oh, man. Take your pick. Was that Edge? Was that Goldberg? Was that Rhino?
Oh, that's Goldberg. That's Goldberg. Yeah, that's definitely Goldberg.
Now we just need to see a jackhammer after it.
Michigan is soon to release details of the internal investigation into the Sharon Moore situation, and athletic director Manuel stepped down as athletic director at the year's end. The school says that there from Ross Dellinger. He reported yesterday that Ward Manuel, the athletic director at Michigan, will be out at the end of the school year. Coley, a lot happened under Ward Manuel's watch. The Connor Stallion situation, and then the Sharon Moore scandal, his firing, and then his subsequent arrest. Dusty May wins a national championship, and just months later, he leaves to go coach in the NBA. Different, definitely on a different scale, not necessarily as scandalous as the football program, but there's been a lot of good and a lot of bad under Ward Manuel at Michigan. What do you make of him getting to stay with the school through the end of the year, but ultimately leaving Ann Arbor?
You know, obviously his departure is connected to the situation involving the investigation that Michigan pursued on its own. It was an internal investigation that, of course, Ross was just tweeting yesterday mentioning that the findings will not be publicized, but we will learn a little bit more through bits and pieces in the coming days, most likely. And it is in part because of that investigation that now Ward Manuel is going to be departing. The reason why he's at least able to stay for the rest of this school year, which is now going to be essentially a full year, I'm guessing it's because the investigation itself basically found that there was no true wrongdoing on his part, nothing that was truly no real culpability on his part in terms of all of these different scandals that have taken place at Michigan. It's kind of like maybe the investigation is saying, and this is, again, just my conjecture on this, is that he was at the helm of everything. There was all this chaos going on, and he didn't do enough as the leader to truly corral it and control it. However, they can't really say that he was at fault for allowing the sign stealing to happen. He was at fault for allowing Sharon Moore to for that situation to get to the point that it did. That all also being said, he has led this program to some unprecedented heights. And I won't say unprecedented. Precedent is not the right word because, of course, Michigan has been there in both football and basketball. But in short order, for a program that was in the desert, so to speak, looking for an oasis to beat Ohio State in football, for them finally to do that year after year, for Michigan to finally win a national championship in football, for Michigan to finally win a national championship again in basketball. This was a fan base and a school that was so starved for success when he came in just over 10 years ago that now you do have to credit that. You do have to respect the heights that he was able to lead that program to. And I guess that's another reason why he's at least able to stay on for the rest of this year as they conduct this search to find their replacement. I've interacted on a limited scale in times when I would cover Michigan years ago with Ward Manuel, and of course, not knowing what was happening within the program at some of those times, or even a lot of that happened even after those periods of time. I had a level of respect for him as an athletic director who was leading a program of this ilk and leading it in that successful way. But you do have to question some of that respect now when you know a little bit more about what was happening behind the scenes at Michigan. The Sharon Moore situation certainly really exacerbates the problems that apparently have persisted in Ann Arbor for some time. The fact that he was able to have this relationship with a staffer, meaning Sharon Moore, and then the subsequent situation that happened from that allowed him to be arrested. That's not what you want from your football coach. That's not what you want from someone who is a leader in your program, whether you know what they're doing, at all hours of the day as the athletic director or not. That certainly it certainly runs counter to what you're looking for within your athletic program. So the dismissal makes sense. But I guess he's being rewarded for the success of the programs have had over his tenure.
Yeah, the dismissal makes sense, but I'm going to be honest with you. I'm surprised he's even being dismissed at all. Because I figured a lot of people and a lot of powers that be in Michigan could say, look, yeah, a lot of bad has happened under Ward Manuel, but a lot of good has happened as well. You win a national championship in football and men's basketball in the span of just a few years. I think that, winning and success is the ultimate deodorant for even the stinkiest of crimes that might go on behind closed doors. So I did think there was a world where Michigan just kind of threw it all under the rug, moved on from it. No, I wouldn't have necessarily agreed with Michigan if that was the path forward, but I am surprised that they did, in fact, decide to move on from Ward Manuel. Pete Thamel did report on the Pat McAfee show that Michigan couldn't fire him for cause, that there wasn't enough that they found in their investigations to fire him immediately. So I do believe that Ward Manuel sticking around for the rest of the school year was Michigan and Ward Manuel's way of saying, okay, what's the most amicable and peaceful way that we can do this? Where we don't have to pay you this fat buyout. We're not going to drag your reputation through the mud. You're not going to air our dirty laundry. We'll just, we'll do this in as clean of a split as we possibly can, where you feel like you are getting your due and we feel like we have kind of cleaned up our image in the process. So It doesn't surprise me also that they couldn't fire Ward Manuel for cause. Yes, there are a lot of things that happened under his watch. And even if they weren't directly, his actions, you're still responsible for them when you are the athletic director at Michigan. But I can't blame Ward Manuel for Sharon Moore sleeping with a staffer and then, threatening his girlfriend, so to speak, and then getting arrested for it. Like, I don't think Ward Manuel is to fault for that. I don't think Ward Manuel is the one telling Sharon Moore, hey, you should be angry. You should go threaten her. No, of course not. So,
No.
It's an interesting situation, the way that they're parting ways, but I think it's just what makes the most sense for them on the inside. We hear the term Michigan man a lot. The Bo Schembechlers, the proud tradition that comes from Michigan athletics. Do we look at that differently? Is that quote unquote Michigan man moniker now tainted?
Oh, it's 100% tainted. In fact, I even argue, did it really even exist? There's a lot that maybe we don't know about Bo Schembechler and Fielding Yost. Of course, those are the long ago coaches at Michigan who famously coined the phrase Michigan man. And Michigan man has three pillars. A Michigan man is someone who is who acts with integrity, is someone who understands the culture of the program, and that culture essentially meaning beat Ohio State. That's the culture at Michigan, is to beat the rivals to the south. And then the third prong of that is toughness, to display hard-nosed physicality when it comes to football. And let's also be clear, Michigan man is a term that is associated primarily with football at Michigan because it was those former football coaches, Fielding Yost and Bo Schembechler, who primarily coined that phrase. So this technically doesn't apply to basketball or anyone else around Michigan, but the standard is that everyone at Michigan exposes these standards of what a Michigan man is supposed to be. And then number one is integrity. And clearly integrity has been lacking within the athletic programs at Michigan for some time. I mean, the Sharon Moore situation is prime example number one, but then also the sign stealing situation that involved Connor Stallions primarily at the heart of that. But Jim Harbaugh was the head coach at the time and allowed that to take place. And of course, now he has gone off to the NFL and he does not have to speak anymore on this issue if he doesn't want to. But he was the head coach in charge at the time that was taking place. That's something else that's occurred here. We talked about Dusty May leaving, but also Jim Harbaugh kind of surprising the Michigan faithful and up and going off to the NFL when he did as well. Those are also pieces of this puzzle involving Ward Manuel, that he lost iconic head coaches. He brought in Juwan Howard, who was a name head coach, a Michigan man, so to speak, himself, former basketball icon at Michigan, to come in and be the basketball coach. And initially had some success, but then, of course, by the end of that tenure for Juwan Howard, things had fallen apart for the basketball program. And then, boom, here we go a year later, winning that national championship, and now Dusty May is leaving. That also is part of this equation, is the departure of these coaches under this athletic director. But can it return? Can that myth return? I still think that it's something that's mythologized that probably should not be. But sure, it can return. Someone like Kyle Whittingham, who is the head football coach that was just hired to replace Sharon Moore, he's someone that I've actually worked around at times when he was at Utah. I have a lot of respect for him as a football coach, and I do believe that he will bring the program to some level of respectability again. But I don't think we should use that term Michigan man anymore. I think it's just got to be, this is a football coach who has restored honor to this program, and leave it at that.
I love Kyle Whittingham. If there is anybody who personifies toughness and integrity, it's Kyle Whittingham. And he's been around this sport for multiple decades. I haven't once heard of any Kyle Whittingham scandal or wrongdoing or him coloring outside of the lines. So if there's anybody that's a quote-unquote Michigan man, it feels like it's the guy who's been wearing Utah red for the last 25 years. So I do think that Michigan got that hire right. And I don't want to act like, the Michigan brand is diluted, because of a couple of years of scandals. This is still Michigan. Does it make the program look bad? Of course it does. Do we all collectively, as a college football society, look at Michigan's national championship with a little bit of an eyebrow raised, knowing what went on behind the scenes with Connor Stallions? I can't speak for you, but I can speak for myself and say, yes, I do. So I do think that there is maybe a little bit of the reputation for the right now that is tainted, but this is still Michigan, one of the biggest brands, not just in college sports, but in sports, period. Michigan is a brand that is recognized globally. Michigan is a tradition that runs so incredibly deep. So I don't think that all of a sudden we look at this entire athletic department forever and ever and always differently. But I do think it's fair to say that these kind of, monikers are maybe a little bit antiquated in the current world of college football that we're living in, because no longer are, and it's not a blanket statement, because there are still players that dream of going to a certain school and play for that school and play their entire careers for that school, and they personify the tradition and the values of that program. But it's not strange to see somebody maybe suiting up for the maize and blue that's been at 2 or 3 different schools before that. How much can you really embrace tradition in a certain program when you've been in 2 to 3 or 4 different programs prior? I'm not against the transfer portal in the slightest. Whatever is best for you and your career and your financials, your opportunity to win a national championship, great, good for you. Go do it. But there are certain maybe values and traditions that meant a certain thing maybe in previous iterations of college football where it just doesn't, it feels a little bit diluted in today's college football.
It feels
plenty
cheap
more
now.
to come. It feels different. It does feel different. And I don't want to discount those players and how they embrace those cultures and how much they might love certain college towns and certain traditions, because I'm sure they absolutely do. But it's just a different world that we are living in. We could be living in a very different Major League Baseball world over the next couple of weeks, because the Major League Baseball trade deadline is among us. Bob Nightengale joins coming up next to break down all the rumors that we've been hearing in Major League Baseball.
My sister told me, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. I did. And now it's about, well, what goals are, what's left on the table? I want Street Fighter to be a massive success. I want to do more Guile, but also I want to do more film. I want to do more TV. There's seats on, on the Georgia political scene that are open. Is that a road? Or is this the road to stay with something I love so much, like wrestling? And I love this. I don't know how I'd say bye to it.
Sharks down 10. 3rd down and 10 from the 19. Edwards steps up. Now he's in trouble. And Edwards sacked. Back at the 17. And once again, it's Devontae O'Malley. And flipped into the end zone. Touchdown. A thing of beauty. DeLaurent from Murray with a late pitch over the top, end over end. And a Pirates touchdown.
If you are a check writer at one of these places that has achieved success historically in college football, and you are ideologically opposed to your check going directly to Rev, to paying the players, with the ideology of, well, we didn't have to do this back when. When you hear we didn't used to have to do this amongst boosters, go ahead and order the gravestone for your football program.
Still Barnes in there. No Jared Ware on this drive yet. Roberts against the blitz. Goes to the end zone for Keon Williams. Easy as you like. 16-yard touchdown.
There's Keon Williams. Tried to go to him in the last drive on that 4th down play to the end zone. Good defense by Orlando, but that time able to shake free to the corner.
The Red Sox are on their longest win streak in 80 years after Monday's win against the Orioles. 14 straight in Boston. You heard that correct. The Red Sox on an absolute heater. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is only 2 weeks away. So we're joined by USA Today's Bob Nightengale to preview who is buying, who is selling, and what blockbusters to look out for. So Bob, thanks so much for your time and for joining us this morning. The Red Sox, 14 wins in a row. How has that impacted their plan at the deadline?
Well, they've completely messed up the trade deadline for everybody. They had some of the best pieces, Sonny Gray, Aroldis Chapman, maybe Wilson Contreras. But yeah, it's been a nightmare for teams because they were counting on those guys. And now they're going to be buyers. There's already enough buyers as it is, and hardly any sellers. So yeah, they've done a complete 180 here.
How do teams actually, I guess, kind of respond to this surge from the Red Sox now, Bob? How do you suggest that they shift plans and shift gears, since now the Red Sox are going to be buyers themselves?
Well, one thing, Coley, is that, saying, okay, if the Red Sox can do it, why not us? Do we really want to give up at the trade deadline? Because things can happen. I mean, nobody saw this. The Red Sox didn't see it. Nobody did. And just to have such a dramatic turnaround, where, now you're saying not only are they going to make the playoffs, but they could win the AL East. But there's only about 7 teams out of the race. It's so wide open, in particular the American League. If you got a chance to get in, you got to go for it, because you don't have the Dodgers over there. You don't have, Phillies or Atlanta. There's no powerhouse right now in the American League. So just get in the dance. You could be the last one standing.
Yeah. Now, Tarek Skubal has been floated as a name on the move for a while. And, the Tigers, of course, have been rolling themselves of late, kind of like the Red Sox. So what are you hearing in terms of what may actually happen with his potential tradability as we get a little closer to the deadline?
I think they've got to keep him. I mean, they had a franchise record, $220 million payroll, a lot of season ticket holders, passionate fan base. And you trade Skubal, all of a sudden the fans are disgruntled. They're ripping up their season tickets for next year. The players are upset. I think they got to go for this thing, because the Tigers, you get into the playoffs, if you got Skubal and Framber Valdez and Casey Mize, Jack Flaherty going, 1 through 4, they can beat anybody. So I think they got to be buyers and go get another bullpen arm. They badly need a late inning reliever.
It was not that long ago, though, that we were having conversations about how it was done, it was over, that there was no chance Tarek Skubal was going to be in Detroit for in the near future. And of course, things can change. But do you think that Tarek Skubal himself is on board to stay in Detroit?
I think he definitely wants to stay in Detroit for the rest of the season. He has said that privately, publicly, every way. But he just doesn't want to pack up his bags and get to know a whole new routine, new teammates, everything else. So he does not want to be traded. Now, is he going to sign with Detroit after the season? No, that's not going to happen. They're not going to pay him $400 million. But he'd love to stay there, for the rest of this year and win a World Series. I mean, a long time for those guys, 1984. That's a long drought.
Where do you think he ends up next season?
I'll go with the Dodgers. He's from Kingman, Arizona. Small, I live in Phoenix area. Small town. That's where you stop and get gas on your way to Las Vegas. He's like the only big name ever to come out of Kingman, Arizona. So, which is only a 3-hour drive or so from Los Angeles. He lives in the Phoenix area. So I think he wants to stay out west. The Dodgers make the most sense. I mean, every big name you think of, okay, is he going to the Dodgers, Yankees, Blue Jays, something like that. But I got to say the Dodgers.
Yeah. Now, the Mets season, it has certainly not gone according to plan. Who do you think that they may look to deal away here at the deadline?
Yeah, that's an understatement, Cole. I think they dump everybody. Not the young guys. I don't think they can trade Lindor right now. It's just the money problem. Makes way too much money. But I do believe they can dump him in the offseason. And I think he would accept a trade, just like Brandon Nimmo did when he went to Texas. But all the big guys, they're going to try to trade expiring contracts. Freddie Peralta, they're hoping to get, a decent return on him. But he struggled with the Mets. I'm not sure what they're going to get back. Barely goes over 5 innings. But, that's a good trade chip. But yeah, they're going to be open for business, and I think they'll be the most active team just because they have the most pieces to dump off.
Let's stick in the city of New York then, because the Yankees offense has struggled with Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton on IL. They've been dealing with injuries. It feels like up and down the lineup over the last couple of months. What could the Yankees do at the deadline to help bolster that roster going into the postseason?
Well, they were just in Chicago when the Yankees were there to scout Ryan Jeffers with Minnesota Twins. So they need a catcher bad. They're going to get someone. They're not going to get Hunter Goodman from Colorado. He's not going anywhere, but they will get a catcher. Also like to have another late inning reliever there. They would love to get their hands on Mason Miller, who won it for the Padres. He'd be perfect to shut things down for the next 4 years. And then get another bat somewhere if they can. A starter maybe for depth, but they're really worried. I mean, they're not saying it publicly, but they're a lot more worried about Aaron Judge than they're letting on. They hope he comes back, but there's no guarantee. And now you're talking about, early September at the earliest. You're talking about a guy who's missed, 4 months. So we'll see what happens. But without Aaron Judge, I don't see him going anywhere.
Yeah, I still have a lot of Yankees fans that follow me and pay attention to me, and Miller is a name that so many of them still have been bringing up. So I'd be curious to see if they add that arm later in the year. Speaking of teams that they're trying to contend with, though, the Dodgers, of course, on the other side, once again with the league's best record. Could they look to make moves with Will Smith still out, and now they're having to negotiate Shohei Ohtani's pitching?
Yeah, they're a little worried about Smith. They think he'll be back September 1st. That's their target date for him. But, no guarantee he'll stay healthy. They need him. They want a veteran guy behind the plate. Don't really trust Dalton Rushing to be that guy. So they're looking around for a veteran catcher as well. I mean, I'm not sure Jeffers fills their void, but there's enough veterans around that they can help out. And that's about it. I think they'll dabble in the starting pitching market, just in case, something happens to Ohtani and he can't come back on the mound. But, they don't have to have a starter, but they do need another catcher just for some insurance.
The AL is wide open. We talk a lot about how some divisions or some conferences are top heavy. AL is bottom heavy. Who could be a potential surprise buyer at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I think teams like Texas, who've been kind of up and down all season, I think they'll be aggressive, even though they don't have a lot to trade. I think Seattle could trade their Luis Castillo. They got so many starters, including Kate Anderson, the top pitching prospect in baseball, there for them. So they can absolutely trade a starting pitcher for other pieces and get some help. So that could be aggressive. I think Cleveland will do everything possible to be that team. I know people talk about the White Sox. I don't see the White Sox being that aggressive. I think they'll try, but they're not going to trade prospects and just go for this thing. But I think realistically, they think 1 year away from being a serious team. To make the playoffs this year, great. But it's not like they're going to go all in and trade away their top prospects and find themselves back in the same situation as a year ago.
You've mentioned a ton of names to us, Bob, but I'm curious to know, is there one player who could be moved who no one in the public space is talking about just right now? Is there one player that you're viewing that way?
Some of the young guys I'm wondering about. Hunter Green from Cincinnati Reds, young up-and-coming guy, but he's been hurt a lot. He's only pitched about 100 innings here the last 2 years. If everybody needs starting pitching, and who wouldn't want him? He got 3 years of team control, good contract. If they get blown away by some position players, they could do it. Same with Pittsburgh, though, Neil Cruz. He was supposed to be the face of the franchise. He's just been okay. But they could move him, too. So those two names would jump out and I think kind of shock people just because they're so young and under team control.
We know that the CBA negotiations are kind of the big dark storm cloud that's been hovering over Major League Baseball this season. How could those negotiations potentially impact the trade deadline?
I'm talking to different GMs and executives. The only thing they really believe is that the young guys not making money, that they'll be more valuable than ever. that you really don't want to deal those guys. Say if there is a salary cap, those guys with the big bloated contracts, you want to dump those things, and the guys who are not making money and the young studs, you don't want to trade them away. So I think teams will be a little more reluctant than normal to hang on to those top prospects, knowing that they could be very valuable if there's a salary cap. And we'll see if there is one or not, or certainly stricter salary constraints to make it very painful for teams to go over the luxury tax.
You can find his work and all of his excellent baseball genius breakdowns on USA Today. Bob Nightengale, thanks so much for stopping by the show, Bob. We appreciate your time and what I know is a very busy time on the baseball calendar.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob. You can find him on Twitter at @BNightingale. Coming up next, is this man too good for what he's been doing lately?
Who is your breakout candidate for this year?
Kind of think Isaiah Likely with the New York Giants is a really good candidate this year. Kind of wide receiver room that could rotate a little bit and be useful players, but they don't, to me, have one dynamic. Even Fields, who I like, I don't know that he's gonna be like a dynamic guy that right off the bus, round 3 rookie, leads the team in targets. I think that could actually be Isaiah Likely. Tight ends on their second contracts have been good bets to make. I think Likely is a good bet to make this year.
Derby on the ground, a high popper. Puka comes up to get it at the 10. Williams out over the 15 and the 20. Puka Williams is free. Inside the 10, 5, touchdown! Puka Williams.
When you have one of the best returners in the league, when you have one of the fastest guys in the league, he has been on the verge of returning these over and over in this game. You know how dangerous he is. You've got to have a plan.
How do you feel about the Seahawks skill players at this point in time?
The good part, I think, if you're a Seahawks fan, what you would argue here is that outside of Cooper Kupp, like, everybody should, I think, have another step to take. It's not impossible that JSN does this again, but you bake in some, I'm not like negative against the player, but just a little regression there. The way you offset that is younger guys and other players step up.
Walter Wilbon's on his left hip. White rolls right. White throws deep. White's got a man open. Jamon Street, touchdown, New Mexico. First career touchdown pass for LeJames White, and New Mexico strikes on first down.
Look at him go. Calls for it. Fakes the handoff. I mean, textbook QB1 stuff.
Pretty good throw.
Really good.
Jake Paul sends a message to Tom Brady after his altercation with his brother Logan at Fanatics Fest. Quote, keep your head on a swivel. So this Logan Paul, Tom Brady rivalry, something that I never thought I would say. It stays spicy. There you go. Tom Brady slaps Logan Paul on stage at Fanatics Fest. And of course, we saw the video of those two giving each other a not so nice finger gesture. So, wow. A lot going on here. Coley, is this all, fake wrestling rivalry to try and beef up some interest for a potential WWE cameo for Tom Brady, or is this something more?
You see my face, Caroline. I am not amused in the slightest by any of this. This is a whole bunch of fakery. This is, maybe it is to set up something going on in the WWE the fact that the WWE was there and had its camera going, had its phone camera going, or whatever the case is, certainly suggests that there's something deeper at play here. This is not any kind of genuine hatred or beef that Brady has with the Paul brothers. Certainly he has had some beef with them going back at least a year or so, but it all feels like a grift. It feels like everything with Brady these days is a grift to be relevant, to make even more money, to just be in the public eye. And, I'm not necessarily hating on that, but I don't think that Brady really has haters and enemies the way this slap of Logan Paul would warrant. That's enemy behavior right there. That's, I don't like you and I'm gonna, do something about it. But also it seemed very clear that it was a ploy. Everything that they've been doing, that they've been in the spotlight for, has been a ploy. And I mean, the Paul brothers, this is their thing, to catch attention, no matter what it is, no matter how extreme it may be, and to get people talking. And here we are talking about all of it.
What are we doing? Like, what is happening? What kind of alternate universe have we just entered? I mean, we're talking about Tom Brady here. We're in a different dimension. Like, this is Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback to ever play professional football, having some sort of like fake social media beef with whatever it is the Paul brothers are. What are they? YouTubers? Boxers? Influence? Like, I don't like what? What are we doing here? This is so obviously fake, and it just feels so beneath Tom Brady. It feels beneath Tom Brady to do Pizza Hut commercials, because he's a guy who has built his brand on the fact that he wouldn't even eat strawberries because the sugar content was too high. And that's not an anti-Pizza Hut take. Pizza's great. It just feels like I had such a clear vision of the identity and the brand of Tom Brady, and so many things that he has done over the last several months, and even that he's done since he's retired, just feels so anti Tom Brady. I mean, I just feel like this is kind of beneath him. Does it damage his reputation and his legacy? No, like, he's still Tom Brady. He's still the guy who did that 6 different times. He's still the guy who will go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to ever play quarterback. He's still Tom Brady. It just feels so wrong and icky and weird and inauthentic to me, Coley.
Yeah, inauthentic. That is the primary point of all of this, at least of this conversation you and I are having. I feel like I don't know if genuine has been a word that's really defined so much of who Tom Brady has been, at least from his NFL career on. I certainly believe that in Michigan, we talked about Michigan man earlier, as a quarterback there, becoming a 6th round pick, I feel like he knew what it was to be that everyday man, so to speak, just kind of a normal person grinding through life. He gets to the league, all of a sudden he has success, and he starts to do the things that he needs to do to take care of his body, to take care of what he's ingesting into his body, working out the way that he does. He gets in such incredible shape because of his commitment to be the best. But even then, there's something within that doesn't smack of being genuine. But now that he's away from the lights, away from what it takes to be a winner in that regard, it just feels as if he's doing whatever it is that he can do to stay relevant. And that's not a bad thing. Again, I'm not hating on that. I'm certainly I'm a little envious for sure. I would love to be able to do this and this and this and this and this just because my name is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. But it doesn't damage his legacy. His legacy is what it is because of the success that he had as a quarterback. He will always have that. His name is always going to ring out. But what it does do is make it that much more plain and evident that inauthenticity is a big part of his identity. And, I kind of shudder at saying that because you don't want to say someone's fake, but this is fake. Even his broadcasting career, as good as he has gotten, he's gotten a lot better throughout his broadcasting career. It isn't something he's had to do. If you want to own the Oakland Raiders, just own the Oakland Raiders. If you want to be around football, the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm sorry about that, Vegas. If you want to be around football in some other form or fashion, be around football. But you don't have to do these things just because it is a playbook for making money, for being on top, and for grifting. This just all feels like such a grift, like I said before, but it smacks to what you just said, inauthenticity. And I just personally, I don't really like that myself.
I don't either. I don't care what you do as long as you are authentic and genuine. And first, let me just say, we don't call people dorks enough. We need to bring back the word dork. That was a good use of the word dork.
Yeah,
by Tom Brady.
that is. Yeah.
Bring back dork 2026. And look, even though I think you make a good point, I don't think I would ever use the word genuine to describe Tom Brady. I would use the word consistent. And if Tom Brady wanted to make, TB12 a big part of his brand post-retirement and expand that brand out a little bit more, he's been doing Men's Health magazine things. Like all of those things kind of make sense. Production, being a part of the ownership group with the Raiders, all of those things align so well with the vision that I have for Tom Brady and Tom Brady's brand. All of those things make so much sense to me. If Tom Brady wanted to have his own version of the Manning Passing Academy that Peyton and Eli and Archie do, that would make a whole lot of sense to me. Just, things extending out in his retirement and his career post-football that just align so well with what his brand and his career was while he was playing football. All of those things just make so much sense to me. But now I'm like you're doing things with Logan Paul and Pizza Hut. And I think it's different than maybe Shaq, because Shaq has probably made a reputation for himself post basketball that he's in every single commercial, right? He's in insurance commercials. He's in Icy Hot commercials. He endorses printers. Like Shaq is everywhere. But that feels different to me, Coley, because it's not Shaq going against his brand. It's not Shaq going against what feels like it's Shaq. Like whenever I see Shaq in the insurance commercials, I'm like, oh, there he goes. That makes sense. He's just being himself. That's his personality. He is consistent. It's just it's different with Tom Brady. But whether it's real or fake, and I think we can agree this feels so fake. A lot of NFL players have taken to social media to say that they want to keep the real grass installed in the World Cup venues around the country. So it didn't seem to, it didn't seem to do much good, as we've seen the video of the grass being immediately ripped out after the game's wrapped up. What's it going to take as we talk about real and fake with Tom Brady? Is this going to be real or fake? The real or fake grass in NFL stadiums upcoming?
It's still going to be the fake grass in so many of them. I don't know what the numbers are now, but I know a couple of years ago, something like 17 of the stadiums, or 17 of the teams play in stadiums that feature artificial grass. And I don't think that number is really going to change. I think we're still going to be about there for some time, especially as we continue to build newer and newer stadiums. It just feels like the owners are so comfortable, having this artificial synthetic surface that their players are playing on. And what it would take for change is the players would have to organize some kind of mass boycott, which I am a little surprised that the NFLPA didn't really urge them to use this World Cup moment where we have this grass, non-real grass debate to say, look, we're going to just stop working. We're not going to do this. Granted, they're not going to get paid, of course, if they do that. That's the alternative to that. But it would take some kind of massive, collective action in order for them to be heard. It would also take possibly a lot of serious injuries to take place in order for the owners to maybe stop and pause and see what is happening. I did a story a couple of years ago when I was at ESPN on this grass turf debate, and I believe I got to get the right official term. I believe it was the American Journal of Sports Medicine. They evaluated injuries all across the world of sports from the past 50 years, but specifically looking at artificial surfaces and grass surfaces. And they found that ankle and foot injuries, lower leg injuries, happen more on artificial surfaces than natural grass. And that's on the old AstroTurf and also the current artificial surfaces that we see now. So it's clear, the evidence has been there for a very long time that these surfaces do not help athletes. But yet the owners, it seems like, they've known this evidence for some time. It just seems like they could care less. So I think we're not going to see this change, no matter how often the athletes do protest, no matter if they do stage some kind of mass boycott. We're still going to be in this same space, Caroline.
I'm looking at a breakdown here that over the span of 2019 to 2023, MetLife was responsible for give or take 5.9 injuries per game. That is known to be one of the worst turf fields in the National Football League. Ford Field, 5.8 injuries per game. Again, indoors turf. Nissan Stadium, 5.88 injuries per game, artificial turf. Caesar Superdome in New Orleans, 5.83 injuries per game. That's, again, artificial turf. So the science is there. The numbers are there. There is no doubt that real grass is better, whether that's avoiding injuries, whether that's just a comfort level for the players. I mean, the players that I've talked to have said, yeah, turf feels like you're sliding on concrete when you land wrong. But that's what the CBA is for. If you want something, collectively bargain for it. Talk to the NFLPA about it, how you can get something done. Because the owners have come out and said it's going to be too expensive. Okay, fine. So be it. Then how can the players negotiate something, whether that's in revenue share, whether that's in the salary cap? How can they collectively bargain something to feel like they can get something out of it and that the owners feel like they're getting something out of it too? So I hear the players. I feel for the players, because watching them snap their fingers for real grass for FIFA and not for the players that are wearing, their colors and their numbers and their logos, it feels wrong. It feels icky. It feels gross. I get it. I know, but that's why you collectively bargain. And that's why you have a players association.
One last thing I'm going to say on this too. We saw that Giants logo at MetLife Stadium a lot, New York, New Jersey Stadium. 4 games this year the Giants are playing on grass. The rest of the season, and this includes the preseason, the rest of their year is all on that surface, whether it's in that stadium or another one. It's going to be on artificial surfaces. That's not going to be good for those players suiting up for the Giants this year.
Brutal, especially a team that's coming into this season with a lot of injury question marks. Jackson Dart's concussions, Malik Neighbors' knee, Cam Scadaboo and his backflips. Brutal. And I hate that. I do hate that for the players, but that's why we negotiate. All right, coming up next, we know here on Yahoo Sports Daily, we have the FVI, known as the Football Vibes Index. Now we've got a baseball version. We'll explain what it is coming up next.
The starting price for a low 4-star. So low 4-star would be, we could be talking the 350th best player in the country. $350,000.
So 300 to 400 individuals a year, let's say roughly, are getting a 4-star ranking. $350K on average? That feels correct.
I saw that number and I thought, it seems low.
My
that was my reaction.
Ross.
4th down and 4 for Jacksonville. Down a touchdown. 2 in motion for Edwards. 3-man, now 4-man rush. Launches end zone, far side, touchdown! Jaden Stoshak.
I mean, once again, rolling out, getting out of the pocket, avoiding the pressure, throwing on the run there, but great throw.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals are not going to be, one, running a serious operation this year again, and then 2, they got absolutely bludgeoned. They opened this year with 9 games against all almost Super Bowl contenders, and they only play 3 home games over that span. They have a late bye. We're going to see probably Carson Beck for the fantasy playoffs because they just won't have enough wins. The Arizona Cardinals are a team from a managed league standpoint. I'm not drafting any of their players.
Really, if you watch their motions, the motions are at different speed. That's been pretty fun.
Comes on and now with the quick pitch to the outside. That's not
Jinx.
fooling anybody as Hershot Davis picks him up and goes full body slam. Welcome to the WWE.
Spear, spear, spear. Oh, man. Take your pick. Was that Edge? Was that Goldberg? Was that Rhino?
Oh, that's Goldberg. That's Goldberg. Yeah, that's definitely Goldberg.
Now we just need to see a jackhammer after it.
The Rizzler has arrived to throw his bullpen and says that Francisco Lindor has the most Riz in the major leagues. You heard it here first, folks. The man has spoken. Francisco Lindor has the most Riz. So if you've been watching us for a while here on this show, first of all, thank you. And if you're new, welcome. We have something here on Yahoo Sports Daily that we like to call the FVI, the Football Vibes Index. It's very scientific and it is very important. And it is just, what are the vibes like for this team? But we also have a brand new, in honor of baseball season, our new patented baseball Riz Index, the BRI. So let's look at some players and happenings around the league and find out where they might rank on the YSD BRI, the Yahoo Sports Daily Baseball Riz Index. And we have to start with none other than the aptly named Anthony Rizzo. The former Cub was in the stands at Wrigley and snagged a Michael Busch home run ball with toddler in hand. Awfully impressive. There's something wrong to me about a Cub named Michael Busch, first of all. But Coley, where is this on the BRI, in your opinion?
A Cub with that, the spelling of Michael Busch like that, specifically, of course, Caroline.
Doesn't belong
this
to
ranks
Chicago.
pretty. It does belong in Chicago. This ranks pretty high. First of all, we got to go all the way back to last year. At some point in the middle of last summer, Anthony Rizzo was at another Cubs game, was in the left field bleachers. We've got the picture actually up above. He was in the left field bleachers, dropped a possible home run ball. It kind of went over his head. He couldn't really hang on to it. I've been there before. I know what it feels like. And he couldn't get the ball, so he lost out. Fast forward to this year, just this past weekend, he's in the right field bleachers at this game. Gets the home run ball, has the baby in hand. And apparently, I didn't notice this until we were talking about this earlier, but next to him is Nick Friedel, who is a former colleague of mine and a couple other people that work here with us at Yahoo Sports Daily. And that's really cool. I did not know that Nick had that kind of connection with Anthony Rizzo. That's awesome. But the fact that Rizzo does this with the baby in hand, doesn't drop the baby, doesn't drop the ball, I guess he just needed to be on the right side of the field, right? He was a first baseman, so right side of the field. Left field
true.
didn't have the same luck. So hey, good for Riz. He's got a high BRI.
Friend of the show, Nick Friedel. This is also an even better part of the story. He's wearing the same jersey he caught the final out of the 2016 World Series. What's your philosophy on that? If you're Anthony Rizzo, are you wearing that jersey again, or are you framing it? Like I would frame it and never touch it again, and I would leave it in game shape, covered in dirt and sweat and everything. Here, Anthony Rizzo is wearing, a relic.
I have a feeling it probably was framed at some point in time, and he just, I guess he was like, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm going to this game. We're going to put this on today. I think that's actually pretty awesome. I did not know that part of the story. I keep learning so much about this story. That's really sweet. I was in the building there in Cleveland for Game 7. So to know that jersey survived such an important moment in Cubs and Chicago lore and history, awesome. Feel bad for our Cleveland residents of the program, like our producer, Michael. I know that was not a great night for him, but it was awesome being in that building, working that event, because I knew what it meant. I was in college when Bartman happened. I went to college, just north of Chicago. And so I knew what that meant for so many Cubs fans. That's why they love Rizzo in Chicago. That's why he's got high BRI in the CHI shot.
I mean, he probably just didn't have anything else to wear to the game. Doesn't have enough Cubs gear. Just had to bust open the jersey that was framed. I will say though, he's lucky the baby's okay, and he's lucky he caught that ball. Because if the baby was hurt, if the ball was dropped, if the baby's head gets bonked, I mean, he's gonna get a talking to when he gets home. But no doubt, this is off the BRI scale. I mean, the jersey, the baby, the catch, all of it, happening at Wrigley Field, all of it is just off the baseball Riz scale. Who would top your baseball Riz index if it's not the Riz man himself?
Man, the Rizzler's onto something, man. Lindor might have that top spot. I'm going to go with an unconventional pick, though, just because I don't think he's really overall in the grand scheme of things gotten a whole lot of love. And this is going to tie in with your St. Louis fandom. But Jordan Walker, a whole lot of people got to learn that name for the first time during the home run derby. He put on during the derby. He had the chains going. He had the backwards hat a la Ken Griffey Jr. And then with the entire stadium in Philadelphia booing him because, of course, he was going up against Kyle Schwarber there in the final, booing him incessantly throughout that entire round. He goes off and wins it. And, he looked great doing it. Jordan Walker from Atlanta, Georgia, just one of those young men that you really want to root for. Parents went to MIT and Harvard. Just a really, really cool situation, really cool story. Great hearing from his dad afterward as well. That family's got a whole lot of riz. I'm putting them very, very high on my list of BRI.
That's a great pick by you. And that quote, I was once told, you don't boo nobodies. Oh, mic drop. People in St. Louis are already printing that on T-shirts. That is so epic. Great pick by you. My pick was probably Fernando Tatis Jr. The swagger. I feel like Fernando Tatis, early in his career in San Diego, he kind of changed the way that baseball players embrace style. He's kind of brought us in, him and several other players have kind of brought us into this new era of, baseball players and their branding, embracing style, and get kind of coloring outside the lines a little bit. He's definitely at the top of my BRI. Who was at the top of our basketball Riz Index, of course, is none other than LeBron James. So coming up next, we're joined by Channing Frye to take us into the mind of the king.
My sister told me, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. I did. And now it's about, well, what goals are, what's left on the table? I want Street Fighter to be a massive success. I want to do more Guile, but also I want to do more film. I want to do more TV. There's seats on, on the Georgia political scene that are open. Is that a road? Or is this the road to stay with something I love so much, like wrestling? And I love this. I don't know how I'd say bye to it.
Sharks down 10. Third down and 10 from the 19. Edwards steps up. Now he's in trouble. And Edwards sacked. Back at the 17. And once again, it's Devontae O'Malley. And flipped into the end zone. Touchdown. A thing of beauty. DeLaurent from Murray with a late pitch over the top, end over end, and a Pirates touchdown.
If you are a check writer at one of these places that has achieved success historically in college football, and you are ideologically opposed to your check going directly to Rev, to paying the players, with the ideology of, well, we didn't have to do this back when. When you hear we didn't used to have to do this amongst boosters, go ahead and order the gravestone for your football program.
Still Barnes in there. No Jared Ware on this drive yet. Roberts against the blitz, goes to the end zone for Keon Williams. Easy as you like. 16-yard touchdown.
There's Keon Williams. Tried to go to him in the last drive on that fourth down play to the end zone. Good defense by Orlando, but that time able to shake free to the corner.
LeBron James and Channing Frye and San Tropez. My invite did get lost in the mail, but that's fine. I'll catch you guys next time. 1 month ago, the 2016 Cavs all got back together and reunited on a Euro trip for the ages. So I have to ask, what's the one story from the trip that you have not revealed on any other show and you're prepared to tell us right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I probably went over this trip. Okay, just so everyone knows, it wasn't everyone. Now, obviously, we've been on a text chain for, we told the story a million times, and this was our text chain. And so Richard, Swish, Kevin, Tristan, Braun, myself, we text every day about everything. Who's here, or who's golfing, or who's doing this. And so for us, it was like, hey, are we all going to make it, to kind of celebrate the 10 years. So I know everyone says it's the whole Cavs. It just so happened that Delhi flew out for 36 hours. We had seen Shump. And so we were like, yo, Shump, Kyrie, Delhi, like, what's up? Come on out. And Delhi flew out for 36 hours, and you saw those videos. But dude, it was great.
Awesome.
But what was it? I don't really know. I think we pretty much, what do you, it's just a guy's trip. Just a lot of joking, drinking, golfing, dancing, laughing, just telling funny jokes, man. It was good. It was a good time. Like, it was much needed. We haven't been in the same room together for 10 years, so it was tight.
Oh, that's awesome. I definitely have a couple of those different text change with some of my fraternity brothers.
sure.
You got everybody on one, you kind of got a few people here and there, so I totally get it. I totally understand.
And certain people just don't want to be on it, but I think for us, it made sense. Kevin and Braun put it all together, and we're like, all right. And then if the Knicks had gone to 6, Richard wouldn't have been able to come. So there was pretty good timing.
Well, of course, that trip was to celebrate you guys coming from down 3-1 in dramatic fashion in 2016, 10 years ago, like you said, to win in the NBA Finals, win the Larry O'Brien Award that year. Do you think LeBron cares at all just about how blasphemous it might be to Cavs fans that the Warriors are in the mix for his services right now? Do you think that that he would care at all, that Cavs fans care about that portion of this drama involving his decision?
No, because when I saw him, I said, don't do it. I said, don't do it. That's gross, right? I think he understands, right? And I'm being honest, right? I think we're all like, we didn't bug him. We didn't talk about it. But I go on the side. I was like, hey, you got to do what you got to do for you and your family and your career, but that's gross. Please don't do that. But I think, in all honesty, I think this is like, it's so funny hearing the two sides of this. The one side is like, oh man, he's narcissistic and he's holding up the NBA and it's all about him and this attention. And I'm pretty sure he's been golfing or going to concerts the last month. I don't think he gives a crap, right? I think he's, the dude is going to be 42 years old. He understands he can't win it by himself. So the other part of this is, hey, I want to see what team you put together. I'm LeBron James, and I'm going to go there for the vet minimum. So for him, take it as you guys go ahead and do what you have to do. And then, you know what? That looks like fun. I like a lot of these guys. Here's how I can help. Now I'll go to that team. But until then, when's the last time LeBron wasn't doing Olympics? Or he wasn't going crazy for trying to be like, all the pressure's on me. The pressure's not on him anymore. What vet minimum guy has got this much attention for saying, guys, you go ahead. I'll catch up, right? And I think when he's saying this is the first time in his career and the only time in his career that he's having to sit back and kind of enjoy his summer, right? And I think when knowing him for as long as I have, he's always been like, what do I got to do to make this team a championship team? And in all actuality, there's nothing he can physically do anymore to make himself a championship contender. It has to be the team. And he has to be just a good part of that team. So when you look at it from that perspective, you're like, dude, enjoy your summer. Enjoy your summer. Play some more golf, go to more concerts, hang out, just stay in shape, and I'll see you in training camp.
Anyone saying it's narcissistic needs to touch grass. I mean,
but
let the man
you hate him,
go through his process.
Right.
Where do you think he plays next year?
Where do I want to see him play? I could talk. I'm not going to give you a whole chart. I want to go back to Cleveland. It just makes sense. Yeah. I think for me, he's gone, especially with talking to him and understanding, again, I see clips all the time of things, and I agree at times with certain things that people are saying, but they don't get the whole picture, right? He left Cleveland last time because they weren't going to put a better team around him. He wanted the opportunity to go played in Miami, won in Miami. Said, hey, Cleveland's team is pretty legit. I like this setup. Let me go back. Won there. Said, hey, the team is going in a different direction. Let me go to the Lakers. Won there. And now, at the end of that 45-year career, he's like, you know what? I just want to go somewhere where I'm comfortable, appreciated, and just kind of finish off whatever I've started. I think the only two options are Cleveland and Miami. But I don't like the roster in Miami at all. There's not enough shooters. Giannis plays more of a Jokic style basketball where he has to have the ball in his hands. And then now you're making LeBron James a spot up shooter. Where I think here, him and James Harden would be a pretty good matchup I even talked to James the other night, and he was like, "Dog, we're just waiting on big fella." And so I think another thing when it comes to team culture, there's just a certain level of expectation when you have LeBron James on your team. The gym is going to be packed every single night. You're not going to have a dull game. Everyone's going to want to. And yes, he's 42. It's weird, right? I've never wanted to beat up on a grandpa before, but everyone seems to want to beat him up. And, I just think for Jared Allen, for Mobley, for a lot of these guys, they've gotten really close, but having him, even if he's on the bench, even if he's just there around there, it's going to put you over the edge because of your preparation,
And we were talking to Pat Beverly yesterday, and he actually kind of said something along the same lines of when he walks in the locker room, it's LeBron James. You shut up, you listen, you want to absorb that kind of energy. So I really like that you said that.
But it's more, right? It's more like, it practices at 11, he's there at 8. So all of a sudden now, if you were getting there at 10, now you're going to get there at 9. So those 2 hours start stacking. You're 14 hours better, right? You're 76 hours, right? You're 76 hours better by the end of that week. And so stack that up. That's why his teammates get better. It's because he sets the bar so high that you just are like, obviously you're not going to match that, but you're going to try to do better than what you were comfortable with.
I love that. I loved all of that. You guys were just talking about the quote unquote narcissism that some people may want to attach to LeBron with this. But the other portion of maybe why this has not happened just yet is his ability and his desire to announce in a certain way. How would you like to see him share this news with the world that he's made his decision on where he wants to go?
Honestly, I think at the end of the day right now, he's kind of like, and I am assuming he's not even tripping about it. I think when he sees a team, I really don't, because it's like, again, we're speculating, we're doing this. I don't think he's connected. I think Rich Paul and his team are, right? Well, I know that they are, but I don't think he is. And I think he's finally like comfortable in that space of when I know, and I'll just say it. And it might be a tweet, it might be a this, it might be a that. But if this is actually going to be his last year, then I think it's a big thing. But I think if he's thinking he's going to play another year or two, then I don't think he does it as this huge grandeur. But if it is his last year, it should be pretty big. It should prepare the team. You got to prepare a team. If I'm going back to Cleveland, the minute I say I'm retiring and I'm LeBron James, all hell is going to break loose. Every single game is going to go up by $10,000. What? Yeah. The last LeBron Golden State game, the last LeBron in the Madison Square Garden game, the last LeBron, like people don't think about that part. So you got to prepare a team. Is that team ready? And is that going to be a distraction for the team? Do they want that? Right? And so that may be something that the team is getting ready for, because it's going to get crazier and crazier as the season goes on.
Could you see him playing 2 more years?
I'll be honest. We showed you video how shredded Deli was back then. Yeah. This dude has not changed an ounce. Now, he's always going to keep his body right and his mind right, but it's the recovery, right? It's the recovery and the ask. We would joke around and we would say, man, this dude used to be one of the fastest guys in the league all game. Now we're like, this dude's one of the fastest guys for like 3 sprints, right? Right? It's a lot on the body. And so, again, on the Cavs, what's his ask? When you saw him in the playoffs, he won you a playoff series because he can win 4 games. An 82-game series, 82-game season on a 42-year-old man with this much mileage is a lot. But if you don't need him to be that, then yeah, it's great. Here, LeBron, sit some games. But then if this is last year, you can't sit LeBron. If this is last year and he's going to Toronto or Chicago, he can't sit no game. People are going to be pissed. They're going to burn down the building.
Yeah. How special
that'd be
has
crazy.
it been? How special has it been to you to just see what he still has been able to do at this stage of his career? And I'm thinking about just the run at the end of this past season and the run into the playoffs at 41 years old to just to continue to play that way. How special has it been for you to witness that?
I think it's more, there's been greats, right? There's been some greats that I played with, MVPs I played with, all-stars. And the thing that makes them great is their psychosis, their psychoticness on preparing to be great, right? And I was telling my son this. It was like, hey, I was elite at my job, at my role. He is elite at everyone's role, including the coach. Right? So to prepare for that, and I know it's like, he's not the best shooter, but he leads all-time scorer. It doesn't make sense. He's never going to catch John Stockton, but you would say he's a pass-first guy. I think, what is he, like 5 or 7 or something like that? Then you look at how he rebounds and how he defends at times. Now, he's gotten older, so his defense is boo-boo. But when you look at him evolve into what he's doing, depending on his body or what his team needs, and he still equates to winning, that is what we all as boys, and hopefully everyone can see, is that when he plays, he gives his team a chance to win. Is he going to win everything all the time? Nope. But you got a chance, or else this 42-year-old guy wouldn't be making news every damn day. I wouldn't have to answer all these questions. If he was just a player, right? If he was just a shooter or a rebounder or a passer, we would not be having these conversations. But at 42, you could ask him for 3 games to go, I need you to be the best at rebounding, assists, steals, blocks, points. And I'll go, okay, I got you 3 games. That's psychotic. That's psychotic.
Before we get you out of here, because we could talk all day long about LeBron and Cleveland, but you also spent time with the Blazers. You live in Portland, and yesterday, Jason Quick of The Athletic reported, quote, the gap between the city of Portland and the Trail Blazers has widened in their arena dispute. Blazers view the city's term sheet as a non-starter. How do you see this resolving, and is there a world where the Blazers are no longer in Portland in the near future?
I mean, I came in 2005, so I would have never thought Seattle would not be in Seattle. Yeah. I never thought the Sonics would never be in Seattle. Here's the deal, two sides, right? 2 sides. One, Moda Center is the oldest, crustiest arena in the league. 2, it needs to move. The nostalgic part of it is awesome, and we'll always be there. We'll always be, the 77 Rip City Blazers. We'll always be the Brandon Roy years, the Damian Lillard years. But people don't understand how business works in the NBA anymore. You cannot have a standalone arena. It needs to be part of a tiny little city so that the owners and ownership can make money, right? That's where they make money from. You look at Brooklyn moved. You look at OKC's rebuilding it. The new owner of the Milwaukee Bucks spent $8 billion to redo that. Look at every single team has not only the arena, but they buy the real estate around it so that they could build up a little city. Maybe there's a casino. Maybe there's some food to eat. There's nothing like that in Portland. So you go to the game, you stop and you leave, whether that's a concert, whether that's a rodeo, whether it's basketball, whatever that is, that's not good for business. So you ask a billionaire to spend 3-point-something billion on something, and then you tell him, well, you got to make that money back on basketball games? Brother, he's going to be in business till he's 100 years old. His partners aren't rolling with that. Now, on the fan side, the Blazers are a very unique team because they've won a lot. They've been consistent winners, right? Meaning they've overachieved this year. They overachieved when they had Damian Lillard. They just ran into the Warriors. The Blazer fans and Portland fans want this owner to acknowledge that history of winning, right? To say, hey, we want it to be Blazers, Rip City, but I need to do business things because I bought this. If I buy a house, I don't care if the previous owner liked that wallpaper. I got to change the wallpaper. I paid for it, right? They just want to be acknowledged and make sure that that they're respected and the history is respected, because there's only 3 teams here: the Thorns, the Timbers, and the Blazers. So he's having to piss off the fans so that he and his partners can make their money back and do good business. He's won on his side. So, and that's where we're in the middle. In the city, we need a new arena. We need a new area. We need something to be excited about. So that's where I'm at. And he could do what he wants. He paid for it, right? But I can see them moving. I can see them moving. But where in the West Coast are you going to move them? If the Vegas team gets there, if the Seattle team gets there, where are you moving this team? So that was my whole big Portland rant.
It's a good question, and I would hate that for Blazers fans, and I hate that for the city of Portland, but business is business. Channing Frye, thank you so much for stopping by the show.
Appreciate you. Thanks
your
for
time and
having
your
me.
insight.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank you.
All right, that is going to do it for us today here on Yahoo Sports Daily. More sports, more breakdown, more conversation coming up tomorrow morning.